Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Stephen A. Williams, president and founder of the creditrepairshop.com. In today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do like a walkthrough of how you can deal with specific items on your credit report. I get a lot of these questions, and I've made different videos on how you can, go after a medical bill, how you can deal with a late payment, how you can deal with a foreclosure, how you can deal with an auto repo. So what I want to do is I want to give like a brief breakdown of what we would look for and how we would deal with it. And I think that you'll get some very good information on getting started if you're trying to repair your credit and increase your credit scores, because we all know that having good credit allows you to, number one, have that confidence, allows you to be able to pay less for the same things that people who have good credit, who have bad credit, pay more for. So if you have good credit, it's going to put you way ahead on a lot of different things, open the doors for opportunities, job opportunities, business opportunities, all of that stuff. So let's get right to it. Medical bills, one of the first things, well, not the first thing, uh, one of the biggest questions that I have a lot of, I don't know what this is, that a lot of people, let me make sure I can write there, yeah, that people come to me about, especially since COVID, is that they find themselves where they have overwhelming medical debt. And now, if you find yourself in this situation, let me tell you what you need to do. Is that first, you need to look at the medical bills and make sure that they're not sharing your information with an unauthorized third party. Now, they have snuck in on the documents when people went to the doctor or they went to the emergency room or one of those centers where they'll say, if you don't pay the bill, that you are signing to allow your information to be shared with a third party. Now, when I say shared with a third party, they're not actually saying like you did this or they giving all the details of what happened. What they're doing is they're sharing with you with third parties the what condition you had. Sharing your condition with someone is a violation of the HIPAA Act. They cannot do that. Some of the times they accidentally share it just by the name of their facility. Like just by the name of how they name their place, like a spine clinic. And then they send the bill to a debt collector and they know that you had a condition with your spine. They cannot do that. Like, I know that seems like, why would that be able to happen? Or like, why there has to be some type of loophole for them to have a ABC Spine Clinic as their name, and then they go to a debt collector because they're not in the debt collection business, and that debt collector contacts you. How is that a violation if they gave it to them? The violation is simply because they shared the condition, your condition. So, number one thing is that they cannot share your condition. Like, they can't do that. Like, that's just like the number one violation that I see. And you can actually have a debt collector stop coming after you. Like, we've literally wrote letters to debt collectors and said, who gave you access to the condition of this of our client? And they would say that the medical center gave them the information, but they would say that they're going to withdraw collection. They'll send it back to the medical center or the doctor's office who did the procedure. Now, before we get into how to get that stuff removed, let me give you some options, because it's not just about that, because the debt doesn't go away when you have that. So let me tell you some things that you can look for, and this comes from experience from working with my clients on actually getting your medical bills paid. So obviously the violation can actually get the medical bills where, number one, they would take it off your credit reports, but number two, it could potentially get the debt forgiven or a very good settlement on that medical debt. Now, something that I tell my clients to be aware of is that you did get medical assistance. So it's not about trying to run from that medical bill, from that medical debt. What I try to get my clients to focus on is like, let's look at getting some type of resolution that would fit for you. Number one, insurance companies, when they get a medical bill, they don't pay the same amount that we would pay. So that automatically lets you know that you can negotiate medical bills with medical providers. You just have to be stern, and you have to, really have that back and forth, but they're always willing to do that. Another thing that I found out is that if you contact the medical facility, they'll usually have some nonprofit agencies that will pay medical bills. You might have to meet a certain criteria, but they will actually pay the medical bills. I have a client who got $36,000 paid by an organization. He had a serious asthma issue, and he had racked up $36,000 in medical bills. And I said, well, not even knowing about the organization, we were just reaching out to go like the back and forth with the medical provider, and just seeing what type of options were out there. And someone had just let us know, hey, there is an organization that might pay those bills for that individual. And something that you should know is that with these organizations, when they get donations, they have to spend it on this stuff. And they seek out people to spend it on. Yeah, they might be a little bit picky where it has to fit a certain criteria, but this is the thing. They have to spend the money. And I have different clients from all over the United States who have actually contacted their medical provider, and they were able to get a portion or all of their medical bills paid. So that's dealing with the debt. That's dealing with the debt. That's how you can get the debt paid, because it's not always just about getting it removed. Now, to get it removed, the first step that you're doing with the medical collection to get it removed off your credit reports is you've figured out if the debt collector, if there's a violation with them knowing your condition. So you would actually submit that documentation to them, and they will usually send it back to the medical provider, and then they will usually state that they're going to remove it. But if they don't remove it, you need to craft a letter to the bureaus, and you also send that to them as the furnisher of that medical information on your credit reports, and let them know that they're violating the HIPAA Act and that you want that information removed immediately. And you also send that to the medical provider to let them know. You will see that they're making some small adjustments to where they're trying not to send that information to where it would be a violation. So they are, working on that, but still, even with that being known, due to law changes, any medical debt that's $500 or below is not even supposed to go on your credit report. So if you have any medical debt that's on your credit reports that's $500 and below, you need to immediately notify the collector or the medical provider that information needs to be removed. Also, I want you to also pay attention to if they're actually hitting you twice for the same account, where you had a medical provider for $500 and then you have a debt collector for $500 or $1,000, whatever the amount, where it looks like you have two different accounts when you don't. And that's actually a problem that I see with original creditors and debt collectors also, where it's like, hey, I didn't have both of these accounts. It's like you're making my credit worse with the same account, and I didn't have two accounts. So make sure you pay attention to that. For medical debt that is over $500, even if you have it, it is not, according to the algorithm, supposed to hurt your credit scores as much as it used to. But here's the caveat, is that it will hurt your scores, hurt your ability to be able to get approved for loans or to be able to get approved at the interest rate that you want to pay. So be aware of that. So now let's move to ID theft. With ID theft, there's a simple process to deal with ID theft, but what makes ID theft difficult is that every company may have their own documentation that's required to fill in for ID theft. We have a client that actually had someone fill in an application to get credit from them. It was with a Home Depot account, but it was done through Green Sky. And Green Sky had gotten sued a few years ago, where I don't know how it happened. I still haven't got full clarification, but they had someone opening up accounts, either a third party or someone in their company was doing it. We haven't been able to get to the bottom of it, but bottom line, someone was opening up Green Tree accounts, Lowe's accounts, utilizing Green Tree. So they would get the loan there, and then it was for Home Depot account. And this was like rampant. Like there was a class action lawsuit about it. So we notified them that, number one, our client never had an account. They looked at it. Like, we actually talked with Home Depot's representatives, and they said, we know that this is ID theft. We know that it's ID theft. And we're like, well, why do you have it on his credit reports? And then we got that removed, but it was a lot of back and forth to get that removed. And then we moved over to Green Sky, because the Green Sky, who was actually getting sued, the way I took it is that someone must have been in there doing this illegally, maybe to boost up their numbers or something, just getting people's information. And I don't even know how they even got the information, but it was done. When we got to Green Sky, it was like pulling teeth. It's like, first they said, send this in, send that in. And then all of a sudden, they sent out a document in the email to my client, and it went to the spam box. And it was their form, the form that they wanted to be able to get the information removed off the credit report. So, to work on ID theft, there's a if you go online, you can get an FTC form, and on that form, it's gonna want your information. It's gonna want information about the account numbers. It's gonna want information about who you think may have done this. It's gonna want you to get it notarized. It's gonna want a police report, like all of that stuff they're gonna want in there. Here's the thing: when it comes to the police report, a lot of people, when they take it to the police report to get a police report, basically what you want to do is just put it on record, because they're not gonna, like, they don't even really get involved in this type of stuff, especially when it's low numbers, or it's not something that's rampant with an individual that they would know, or that it seems like something that they would be able to find out. So, but what you have to do is you have to get that information, and then you utilize that information to get it off your credit reports. So all of that information, you need to send all the documents, make copies. You're going to need multiple copies to send them to TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. Keep a copy for yourself, because you're going to also need to send copies to the furnishers. So you need to send it to each of the bureaus, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, and then you need to also send that information to each of the furnishers that you had that ID theft was done to you. And you need to scan over your credit reports and look at everything. If there's addresses that don't belong to you, if there's job titles that don't belong to you, because when they filled out those applications, they did everything that they could to be able to make it look like they were you. And so there's probably different addresses that were utilized. Maybe it was an old address that you had. Maybe you moved and someone got a letter and they were like, and that individual was someone that wanted to take advantage of people. They got that information. They had some of your data, and they were able to utilize put the other stuff together to pretend that they were you. So step one, get that FTC form, fill it out completely. If you need help with that, we can help you with it. You're going to need to make multiple copies. You need to send all of that information, including every account. You'll see it's going to want information about each account. It's going to ask you questions about how you were harmed. It's going to ask you questions about who do you think did it. And if you don't know who did it, then you just put, I don't know who did it. It's going to want all of your information. I know that it's scary. One of the things that we deal with when it comes to ID theft is that people are afraid to give their information because they're like, I just got, I'm a victim of ID theft, and now I have to put more of my information and send it in the mail to you guys. But you have to do it. And I think that that's like one of the things that that's put in place. I don't want to say put in place to stop people, but it does stop people. We've had people who were like, I'm already a victim and I don't even want to get the information to you guys to be able to work on it for me because I'm already a victim. What you have to do is you have to put that aside and you have to have the goal in mind of getting things fixed. And if you find someone to help you or if you do it yourself, you're going to have that back and forth. That's just the way it is. There's no other way around it. You're going to have to go through that process. So you're going to get the FTC reports. You're going to send it to, and you're going to need to get on your credit reports, you're going to need to get the furnisher's information. If you were not getting the bills in the mail, you don't know who the furnisher, what addresses to send it to. You just know it shows up on your credit reports. So on your credit reports, if you have a monitoring service, paid monitoring service, you'll be able to get the furnisher information and you'll get all of those addresses and every address and phone number, so you can do all of that work to be able to get that information taken off your credit reports. So you're going to send it to the bureaus and you're going to also send that information to each furnisher. If you don't do that, you're going to see that it's going to be very difficult for you to be able to get the job done. And some of the times they probably, each of the furnishers is going to send you their own internal ID theft document, and you have to fill that out. If you don't fill it out, most of them won't do anything. Most of them won't. And that's their prerogative to be able to do that. Like, they can't just say, we got to take the FTC report. They could take the information, but they say, hey, we're our own company and we have our own rules. And they can say, if you don't submit it on our document, and do what we need to do, take the steps that we need to have done, we don't have to take action. And that is their own prerogative. And that is actually even what the FTC and the CFPB says, is that if you don't follow that business's ID theft protocol, they don't have to do anything about that. The next one is collections. Let's talk about removing collections off of your credit reports. But first, let's talk about the goal. What are you actually looking at doing with your credit when it comes to dealing with these collections? So you have client A is like, I'm trying to buy a house. I have these collections on my credit reports. What should I do? I would say you need to reach out and make deals, unless it's with third-party debt collectors that these accounts are very old. You should reach out to the original creditors to get those taken care of. If it's with a third-party debt collector and you know that these are probably going to be substantiated, then I would reach out to the collectors and make deals to get that information settled and then removed off your credit reports, because you're not going to be able to move forward on getting what you want to get. Now, if you have time and you're just like, hey, I just want to work on my credit, get these things removed, if I have to resolve them in the end, I can resolve them. Then you need to run through a process of a full validation. And you should always still, no matter what, even if you're looking at buying something like a house or, a big ticket item, you should still run through a validation process. But what you have to be aware of is that when you go through a validation process, there's going to be a 90-day period. So for 90 days, if you dispute an item with a debt collector, nothing can be done for 90 days. They're going to go through their process. You go through your process when they get you the documents. but for 90 days. But something that you need to also be aware of is that you cannot go and try to buy a home. It's mostly for homes, for mortgages. If you have any disputes that are open, you're going to automatically, no matter how high your credit score is, you're going to automatically get denied for that loan. So you have to be very careful. I'm always telling people, what are you looking to do? Are you trying to buy a house? Are you trying to buy a house now? Or are you trying to get in line to buy a house later? Because if you're trying to buy a house right now, then you don't need to do a dispute. You need to just start the process of trying to work out some deals with the debt collectors or the original creditors. And then something that you got to be very careful of when dealing with them is that you gotta, especially when you're trying to negotiate a settlement, you gotta be careful because they can sense, oh, this person might be trying to do something. They could look at your credit reports and they can see this person went and got a pre-approval for a mortgage. So you're kind of giving them leverage on you. So if you're looking at buying a home, don't get that pre-approval right away. And if you've already done it, then fine. But if you haven't done it, I would work on the credit first and then get the pre-approval, because it's gonna not give the debt collector or the original creditor leverage against you. And then also, original creditors don't really care too much about that part, but debt collectors use that as leverage. They look at the inquiries that you have, and they're going to look at it as leverage on what they're going to negotiate the settlement on your account. So with the collections, it just depends on where you're at in the game. If you're trying to buy something right away, then you know that you should probably move forward with doing the settlement. If you have more time, more than 90 days, and it needs to be, don't say 90 days is what you have. You need to have more than 90 days because you're going to need to have some time to do negotiations. But you can also get that done within that 90 days. But you can't go into negotiations without rescinding the dispute. You will see that if you do a dispute and you try to call in to work on a debt collection that you want to pay, they're going to say that you have to rescind the dispute. That's something that's written in the law, that during the dispute process, they can't even settle with you. Now, you might have a debt collector that might break the rules, but they're going to always have to, you'll see that they always have you sign something saying that you withdraw your dispute. You're going to have to always do that, and then you can move forward. So you have the validation process, and then you have, depending on what you're trying to do, but if you have more time, then you get into where you're going to be submitting your information to the credit reporting agencies, TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, based off of what you see is inaccurate about that collection. So what we do here is we just break down exactly the type of collection. Some of the times you'll see a collection where it doesn't even say what the account was. It was just specifically saying that you have an account with such and such debt collection company. You never had an account with such and such debt collection company. It might say, some of the times it might just have an account and it don't even say anything. It'll just say collection. You don't have any account with a company called Collections. Also, you may look at the balances and you see that this is, even though you know that this is an account that they purchased, the information on that account is totally inaccurate from what was carried over from what they purchased from the original creditor. There's all types of things that you'd have to do, but you just need to break it down. And that's what we do here at the Credit Repair Shop, is that we'll look at that item and we'll break down specific information about it. So, but when it is submitted to each of the bureaus, something that happens, this is something that happens, is that when they get that information, really a lot of the times the back and forth, like the real work is going to start after that first dispute, because they're going to get you that information back. And then when you read it, you'll be able to see what is the grounds that the bureau decided to either keep that information or they may delete it. If they delete it, then there's no problem. But if they keep it on there, what was the grounds on them keeping that information on your credit reports. And that's when that back and forth starts to happen. And that's when, you know, that I call it the grind. That's where you're grinding and you're trying to say, okay, either they didn't look at this because you know that this information is inaccurate. They either didn't look at it. It must have went into the pile where the computer just sent back an automatic response, or whoever looked at it didn't do a real investigation, because if they looked at it and read it and compared it against other information that you maybe sent them, or other information that they would have to look at as being the original creditor, even if they purchased it, that information would be inaccurate and it needs to be removed. But that's in that back and forth. I wish that there was like some easier way to do it. That's part of the process. And remember, they get millions of documents every month, and they're shifting through these, and some of them go into a computer, some of them go to people. But even the ones that go to people, you can see that some of the information is not reviewed fully, because you'll see, like, you know that information is inaccurate. Like for the client that had the ID theft, when the bureaus got it, like, it took us months to keep a back and forth work, even getting on the phone with them. But a whole bunch of back and forth work for them to just finally say, hey, this stuff is not accurate and it needs to be removed. So it can take a lot of work, but it can be done. So now let's move over to late payments. When we deal with late payments, one of the things that, like, if you've been watching my videos, I say you got to be very careful with late payments. And with the FICO 10 algorithm, you have to even be more careful, because the way it used to be, just this represents the months. And like, say you made all good payments and you messed up right here. Like, so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, and you messed up on month number 5. You would need it before FICO 10 came into action. You would need 5 months to get that taken away, to have that taken off, because then you would be clean for 24 months. The way that FICO 10 has it is that, number one, they're going further. It has not, I mean, they're saying 36 months, but it also had a vague line in their paragraph that stated that it's going to look at 36 months, but it said 36 months and beyond. So we don't know if it's even further than 36 months or if it's just 36 months. And also, you might hear a beep. There must be an alert for you know, that Amber alert. So I hope that gets taken care of. But it could be 36 months or even more to be able to get that negative late payment taken off of your reports. And late payments can affect your scores a lot. It can affect your scores a lot. I've seen one late payment drop a person's score 20 points to 30 points. And something else that you need to be aware of is, say your credit is like clean. You've done very good. You got utilization down, no collections, you're doing very good. And then you have one late payment. From what I've seen, it seems that it hurts. It would hurt you more than an individual who had like 5 or 6 items on there that were negative. And that's because the way the algorithm is written, if you make any mistakes, it seems like if you make any mistakes, you're going to have a high penalty. So now let's talk about how to get that late payment removed off of your credit reports. In the past, we used to directly dispute with the bureaus. We do not like directly disputing with the bureaus if you have an open account, because what we've seen is that the creditor can sometimes take that information the wrong way. They could look at it, depending on how they type it in for the investigation, they can make it look like you're disputing the entire account. Like, I should not have this credit card account. So what you need to do is you need to contact your credit card company, and you need to do this about 2 to 3 months after the late payment, and you need to request that they do what's called a courtesy removal. And if you've been a good client before, you had a hiccup, and you've been a good client afterwards, 2 to 3 months, they will usually give that to you because you're just letting them know that it's affecting your scores. Something that you need to be aware of, especially with credit card companies. This only credit card companies can have this privilege, is that if you say that you're making all your payments, you got this credit card, and you mess up with another credit card, did you know that this can jack up your interest rates? That this credit card that had nothing to do with your late payment, they can jack up your interest rates on that. That's why it's very important. It can, more than costing you your scores, it can jack up your interest rates with your other credit cards. So say you have like 4 or 5 credit cards, and with this credit card, you had a late payment just with that one, or you had a late payment with your automobile, or you had a late payment with your utility. All of these cards, all of them, when you do that, you're giving them permission to jack up your interest rate. Their credit cards are the only ones that can do that, and that's because your account is an open-ended account. So you have to be very careful, because it's not just about having that late payment, it's about what they're going to be able to do when you had that late payment. So now, first, so you make that courtesy call, you call them up, let them know what happened, and you try to get them to remove that late payment off your credit reports. If, most of the time they will do it. Most of the time they will do it. Now, if you have a closed account, say you have a closed account and had a late payment, you know that late payment is affecting your overall score. But what you have to be very careful about, you got to make a decision. So if you have that account, but it's closed, and say you had a late payment right there. If you get that information removed, you can submit, and this will happen, you can submit that information on the late payment, and that creditor, it's like you have a 50-50 chance. That creditor may decide to just take off that, and what we'll see happen is that they're going to take off this block here of the payments from that date going back. And so we always tell people, be very careful, because when they take off this block, that can make your scores come down. Also, you will have the ability to move back up a lot quicker, because you won't have the algorithm working against you with the late payment, but they can remove that. But also, we've also seen, when it's a closed account, that they can take off the whole account, and that can make your scores go down. But keep this in mind, and we always tell our customers this, is that when they take off that whole account, the algorithm is going to be working in your favor. And as long as you have all of your other stuff paid on time, utilization is down, credit is basically clean, the algorithm, it just can't even help it. It's going to allow your credit score to just jump right back up. It may take a month, may take 2 months, but it will happen. So don't worry about that. So I'm going to end the video here. In my next video, I'm going to talk about what do we got here on the next row of things that we got, is we're going to talk about foreclosures, duplicated accounts, charge-off, write-offs, and soft inquiries in the next video. So if you need help with your credit, please visit us at thecreditrepairshop.com. Watch the video, what makes us different, so you can see my 8-point validation process, my 2-phase settlement process. If you need your credit reports and scores, go to the website your3scores.com. Grab your TransUnion, Equifax, Experian credit reports. If you have debt collectors coming after you, grab my 3-pack of letters, statute of limitations, cease and desist collection activities letter, and debt validation letter. Please make a donation. It helps me with my time here making the videos. And I think it's a good thing, because you're getting some valuable information that could save you time, money, frustration. Those 3 letters have worked wonders for people. Thank you for your time. This is Stephen A. Williams, President and Founder of thecreditrepairshop.com.